My wife celebrated my birthday by introducing Herb Upgrade, a con artist who took everything. I had been married to Georgia for 7 years, and until recently, I thought our marriage was solid. We met while I was working as a sales manager at Oak and Pine Furniture, one of the most reputable furniture stores in our city. Georgia came in one day looking for pieces for a new property she was working on, and we clicked immediately. She had that kind of drive and ambition that was magnetic, and I admired her from the start. Georgia was a successful real estate agent, ranking among the top agents at her agency, and I found her focus inspiring. We dated for a year, and our relationship was easy. We rarely fought, and though I noticed she could be a bit materialistic at times, I didn't mind much. Georgia worked hard for her success, and she expected the best for herself. A year after we met, I proposed, and we were married within 6 months. Our first 5 years together were good. We both worked hard, took vacations when we could, and even started saving up for a dream home. My parents adored her, and her parents, Tom and Linda, treated me like their own son. But 2 years ago, everything changed when Oak and Pine was bought by a larger company that had no interest in keeping most of the existing staff. Despite my 10 years of service, I was let go in the first round of layoffs. They gave me a decent severance, and I had unemployment benefits, but George's reaction to my job loss was surprising. She became distant, making subtle jabs by leaving real estate magazines open to listings from other cities or sending me links to job postings that would require us to relocate. I knew she was frustrated, but I didn't expect the barrage of suggestions about how other men always found a way to get a better job quickly. I applied to countless positions in my field, but the furniture industry was in a downturn, and most companies weren't hiring for management roles. 6 months into my search, I had to take a position as a sales associate at Homestyle Furniture, a local store with significantly lower pay and no management responsibilities. I thought any job was better than none, but Georgia saw it differently. She told me outright that taking such a job was settling and that it reflected poorly on her as a successful realtor to be married to a mere salesman. Her disapproval was unmistakable, and things between us began to crumble. The strain grew worse. She'd come home late, miss our planned dinners, and spend more time with her work friends. Any attempt I made to discuss, it was met with accusations that I was insecure and jealous of her success. At one point, she even suggested I see a therapist for dealing with my failures. Then, about a month ago, George's attitude took an unexpected turn. She became sweet again, like she had been in the early days of our marriage. She would ask about my day, occasionally cook dinner, and even suggested throwing me a big party for my 35th birthday. I was hesitant but thought it might be a chance for us to reconnect, to leave the tension behind. Georgia went all out with the party planning, sparing no expense. She invited friends, family, and even some of my old colleagues from Oak and Pine. The decorations were beautiful, and she'd hired caterers to serve gourmet food. The moment I walked in, though, something felt off. Georgia was overly attentive to her phone and disappeared to take calls several times. She'd gone all out on her appearance, too, wearing a dress that looked designer and clearly fresh from the salon. Then, about an hour into the party, the doorbell rang. Georgia practically sprinted to answer it, and when she came back, she wasn't alone. She was holding hands with a young man who looked like he belonged on a magazine cover. He was tall, impeccably dressed, and carried himself with an air of practiced confidence. As I watched them walk into the room, my heart sank. Georgia clinked her glass to get everyone's attention, and when the room quieted, she dropped the bomb. She introduced the man as Mark, her new partner, and proceeded to explain how he was everything she deserved in a man. I was left standing there, in a room full of family and friends, utterly humiliated as she recited a list of my failings and praised Mark as the successful, ambitious man I could never be. Mark took over the spotlight then, talking about his supposed real estate empire, claiming to own properties across multiple states with plans for international expansion. He spoke about how he and Georgia had bonded over their shared dreams of success, while Georgia beamed at him with admiration, as if I didn't exist. I saw my mom in tears, my dad held back by my brother, and our friends staring in stunned silence. George's parents, though clearly uncomfortable, said nothing to defend me. The handful of George's work friends present were actually smiling, as if they had been in on the entire spectacle. I couldn't take it any longer. I walked out, numb and shattered, followed by my parents, brother, and a few close friends. Georgia didn't stop me, didn't come after me, didn't even attempt to explain. She carried on the party as though she hadn't just destroyed our marriage and humiliated me in front of everyone we knew. That night, I stayed at my parents' house, tossing and turning, replaying the scene over and over in my head. The next morning, I called the bank to check on our finances and discovered that Georgia had already moved most of our joint savings, money we'd been putting away for a house, into an account under her name. I froze what little was left and immediately contacted a lawyer. Georgia's betrayal was staggering, but I wasn't going to let her ruin what little remained of my dignity. It's been a month since that night, and we're now deep in the middle of a bitter divorce. Georgia has shown no remorse, demanding the house and most of our remaining assets, arguing that she deserves them because she was the primary breadwinner. She keeps messaging, saying that no judge would ever side with a failed husband, that I might as well agree to her terms to save myself the embarrassment. But I refuse. Losing my job didn't take my self-respect, and I won't let her humiliate me again. Georgia may be ruthless, but I know I'm stronger than she gives me credit for. After sharing my story online, it quickly went viral, and I received an overwhelming response. Many people shared messages of support, with several pointing out that Marcus sounded suspiciously like a type of con artist they'd seen before, targeting successful real estate agents, promising them wealth, and disappearing with their money. One comment struck a chord. Maybe Marcus was more than just George's new husband. Maybe he was a fraud. Intrigued, I contacted my friend Tom, a longtime real estate agent who knew practically everyone in the local property scene. When I described Marcus and his claims of a real estate empire, Tom seemed genuinely surprised. He hadn't heard of Marcus at all, which was odd considering someone with such extensive properties should have a reputation. He suggested I hire a private investigator, so I took his advice and reached out to a professional named Angela. Within a week, she uncovered some shocking details. Turns out, Marcus wasn't Marcus at all. His real name was Michael Peterson, a convicted scam artist who had served time in Nevada for real estate fraud. Angela found records of him using different aliases to lure wealthy women into fake investment schemes, often targeting real estate professionals. He'd charmed them, convinced them to invest in developments, and disappeared, leaving them financially ruined. Worse still, he was currently married to two other women across different states, each of whom he had conned out of significant money. I immediately took Angela's findings to my lawyer, who sent the information to George's attorney. I expected her to be shocked, but instead, she called me pathetic, accusing me of fabricating the evidence out of jealousy. She insisted I was just bitter because I couldn't stand seeing her with someone more successful than me. It was like she had completely blinded herself to reality. Then Angela told me something that made everything more urgent. Georgia had already invested $50,000 in one of Marcus's supposed projects, a luxury condo development in Dubai. She had even given him access to her financial statements, allowing him to see her accounts and credit score. I couldn't believe it. She was letting a con artist walk right into her financial life. I tried warning her parents, but they refused to listen, accusing me of trying to ruin her happiness. I was devastated, realizing that no one in her family could see what was happening. Meanwhile, Georgia kept pushing for a quick divorce, demanding the house, most of our joint assets, and even part of my pension. She wouldn't budge, insisting that a judge would side with a successful woman over a failed husband. Her friends started calling me, insisting I should just let her have what she wanted to make up for my inability to provide the lifestyle she felt she deserved. I was angry and hurt, but there was no way I was going to let her and Marcus take everything we'd built. Then one of Georgia's real estate colleagues reached out privately, telling me that Georgia had been pushing her co-workers to invest in Marcus's Dubai project. She showed me brochures he had given Georgia, full of promises and projected returns. I immediately asked my lawyer to send a cease and desist letter to both Georgia and Marcus, warning them that I'd take legal action if any more of our joint assets went into his schemes. In response, Marcus himself sent me an email, mocking me for my small thinking and claiming that Georgia was finally with a real man who matched her ambitions. The nerve of him was staggering, but it only strengthened my resolve. With the divorce still dragging out, I decided to go further and contacted the FBI. If local authorities couldn't do much, maybe they could. I sent everything Angela had uncovered to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, hoping it would add to whatever files they might already have on him. My story had also caught the attention of a financial fraud forum, where one user mentioned that Marcus was on a wanted list in 2 other states. He'd been actively sought for questioning in similar cases, though authorities had yet to locate him. At this point, I realized that fighting for my assets wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about stopping Marcus from hurting anyone else. I was determined to bring him down, no matter what it took. A month passed and things got worse for Georgia. She seemed completely bewitched by Marcus, ignoring all warnings and shutting me out entirely. She flaunted her new life on social media, showing off extravagant gifts, likely bought with her own money, though she didn't realize it. But the reality of Marcus's game was about to hit her hard. Then, one day, I received a call from Angela. She discovered that Marcus had convinced Georgia to list our house for sale, claiming they could triple their money by investing in his Dubai project. Georgia hadn't even consulted her lawyer or waited for our divorce to finalize. Desperate to prove her loyalty, she listed the house $50,000 below market value to make a quick sale. It was a reckless move, but she believed every word he said. The day before the sale was supposed to close, Georgia couldn't reach Marcus. His phone went straight to voicemail, and his email bounced back. Frantic, she drove to the luxury apartment he claimed to live in, only to discover he'd been renting a small room in a cheap motel on the outskirts of town. He'd left without a trace. In that same gut-wrenching moment, Georgia found that her bank accounts had been emptied. He had drained nearly $200,000 in savings and maxed out her credit cards with luxury purchases. Worse, he'd even taken out loans in her name, totaling over $150,000, using her personal information and forged documents. The life Georgia thought she was building with Marcus had been a sham from the start. Soon after, Georgia's real estate agency called her in for an emergency meeting. They discovered that she had been writing checks from her business account to Marcus for investment purposes, amounting to nearly $75,000. Now her firm was facing potential lawsuits from clients who had invested with Marcus, and her real estate license was put on suspension, pending investigation. When Georgia finally filed a police report, investigators found receipts showing that Marcus had used her credit cards to maintain his facade, renting luxury cars, dining at high-end restaurants, and buying designer suits. They even traced shipments to addresses overseas, where he'd likely sent luxury items to resell. Georgia was devastated, realizing too late that she'd been conned. Her parents were in shock and reached out to me, pleading for help. Tom, her father, called me one evening, his voice breaking, asking if I could assist Georgia financially. I reminded him how he dismissed my warnings, how he and Linda had accused me of fabricating evidence just to get back at her. He hung up, leaving us in a painful silence. The final blow came a few weeks later when the FBI contacted Georgia. They had been tracking Marcus, his real name, Michael Peterson, for months. They had traced his fraud ring across 7 states and uncovered that he'd swindled more than $2 million from unsuspecting women. The FBI was building a case against him, with charges ranging from wire fraud to identity theft. When the FBI asked Georgia to testify against Marcus, she quickly agreed, hoping for immunity from prosecution due to her own entanglement in his schemes. She would never get her money back, but at least she would avoid jail time. During the hearings, it was revealed that Marcus had deliberately targeted Georgia. He'd studied her social media profiles, learned about her career, and played on her ambition to draw her into his trap. Georgia tried reaching out to me multiple times, apologizing through emails, texts, and mutual friends. She claimed that Marcus had manipulated her insecurities, convincing her that I was a failure and that she deserved more. She expressed regret, saying she wished she'd listened to me from the start. I ignored her messages and blocked her number, wanting no part of her life anymore. Her parents continued calling me, insisting that I should give her a second chance and that she'd learned her lesson. I told them plainly that nothing could make me forget the humiliation she'd put me through. She hadn't just betrayed me, she had publicly destroyed my self-respect. I couldn't and wouldn't forgive that. By the time our divorce was finalized, the judge ruled heavily in my favor. With evidence of her infidelity and reckless spending, I retained my pension and the remaining joint assets. Georgia, now financially ruined, moved back in with her parents. Her credit was destroyed, her license suspended, and her future in real estate bleak. As for Marcus, he managed to stay one step ahead of the FBI for a few more months. But his luck ran out when he was arrested in Florida, attempting to pull the same scam on another real estate agent. His target, thankfully, had seen a warning about him online and reported him. The FBI uncovered the full scope of his crimes. 12 victims across 9 states, with total fraud amounts reaching $3.2 million. He had stashed most of it in offshore accounts, though recovering it would take years. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. At the sentencing, Georgia was there, hoping for some closure. Instead, Marcus smirked and told the judge that his victims chose their greed and that he only gave them what they thought they wanted. His arrogance was sickening, but it was the final lesson in Georgia's fall from grace. To everyone who reached out to me with support and advice, thank you. Your messages were a lifeline, reminding me that I wasn't alone. Life sometimes has a strange way of working things out. While Georgia chased an illusion, I stayed true to who I was and rebuilt from the ground up. I can finally say I am free, with a new chapter ahead of me, one of my own making. It's been a year since Georgia's betrayal and Marcus's downfall. My life has taken an unexpected turn for the better. After months of searching and reflecting, I landed a role as a regional sales director at Luxury Living Furniture, one of the largest furniture chains in the country. The position offers even better pay than I earned at Oak and Pine, with room for advancement. Ironically, during my interview, the recruiter mentioned that my resilience in handling public challenges impressed them. They valued the way I managed to stay professional through personal adversity, as reflected in my references and previous colleagues' recommendations. I've since bought a cozy house in a quiet neighborhood, a place that feels like mine in a way our old home never did. I've taken up regular workouts at the gym and even adopted a dog from a local shelter. He's an energetic rescue named Max, a mutt with a knack for making me laugh. My new friends, my family, and Max have become my closest companions, helping me leave the weight of the past behind. Some of our mutual friends, ones who sided with Georgia at the beginning, have reached out, wanted to reconnect. They expressed their apologies for having believed her lies, or even for remaining neutral. I accepted some apologies, but kept others at arm's length, realizing who my true friends were through the entire ordeal. This experience taught me a painful yet valuable lesson about the people we let into our lives, about loyalty, and about strength. As for Georgia, life hasn't been as kind to her. After the divorce and Marcus's scheme came to light, her reputation in the real estate world took a hit. Unable to find work in real estate, she struggled to find employment at all. The last I heard, she was working as a waitress at a local diner. Her parents had to remortgage their house to help her pay off the debts Marcus left her with, and they too have fallen on difficult times. Though some of my former friends suggest I should be more forgiving, they weren't the ones humiliated and betrayed. Georgia did more than just leave me for someone else. She actively tried to tear down my self-worth, mock my career, and undermine everything I had worked to build. Those scars take time to heal, and some wounds are best left closed. I feel no guilt for moving on without her. In fact, I feel only relief. A few months ago, I got the final news about Marcus. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. His smug defense, that his victims were all willing participants whose greed blinded them, only added to the charges against him. The judge made an example out of him, citing the deliberate planning and emotional damage he inflicted on his victims as aggravating factors. During the trial, it was revealed that Marcus had specifically targeted Georgia. He had spent weeks studying her social media, learning about her dreams and vulnerabilities, and devising a plan to exploit her ambitions and insecurity. His callous disregard for his victims was chilling, but the court's judgment gave me a sense of closure. After the sentencing, George's parents reached out once more, asking to meet. They wanted to discuss George's regrets, suggesting that perhaps I could forgive her now that she'd learned her lesson. But forgiveness was never about her learning anything. It was about my own peace of mind. I reminded them of the pain she put me through, of the way they defended her and refused to see the truth when I tried to warn them. For me, there was nothing left to discuss. Some bridges, once burned, are better left that way. Reflecting on everything, I can finally appreciate the new life I've built. The journey hasn't been easy, but I've emerged stronger, with a newfound appreciation for integrity and resilience. To everyone who has supported me, thank you for being a part of this path. Life has a way of rewarding patience and loyalty. While Georgia pursued what she thought was a life of luxury, she lost everything that was genuine. And me? I found a life on my own terms, one grounded in self-respect, peace, and gratitude for each new day.